to know that this isn't a cult that makes you wear long dresses. The minister and I are not going to encourage this.
It's hot.
Well, welcome everyone. And my name is Susan, and I will be assisting Reverend Glenda on the platform this morning. Unity of Fort Wayne Spiritual Center carries this vision for our world. And it is centered in love. We celebrate our connection with the divine in ourselves and others. Centered in love, we celebrate our connection with the divine in ourselves and others. We hope that you will find that connection here this morning with us. I want to point out that everything you need to know is on this clipboard. If you don't have one right in front of you, they're all over, and Desiree in the back will help you get one. Everything you need to know is on here. We have a songbook, we have the order of service, and most importantly, we'd like to stay in connection with you. So there is a card on this clipboard if you have a change of address, or if you're new and we give us your email address. Also, this is used for prayer requests. It's a prayer request that you can fill out, and Reverend Glenda will look at this, and we will add whoever you're requesting to our prayer list. Then later you can drop that information into the offering basket.
Is this a beautiful day?
Yes.
So we may be small in numbers today, but I can already tell that we're large in spirit.
Yes.
So I'm so delighted that you're here. I'm going to ask that as we worship together this morning, as we celebrate our connection to one another, that we hold in our thoughts the 15 people that are over at Johnny Appleseed cooking up soup right now and getting things ready for what we know is going to be our afternoon rush. So, Unity of Fort Wayne Spiritual Center is part of a larger ministry called Unity Worldwide Ministries, and it is founded on prayer. And so each and every day we hold one another in prayer. We also know and affirm that the light of God shines within us always. And so we're going to light our candle today to remind us of that light. And I'm going to ask you to affirm with me, I celebrate my connection to infinite presence. Say that. I celebrate my connection to infinite presence and my unlimited potential. And my unlimited potential. Try it all together. It's on your green sheets. I celebrate my connection to infinite presence and my unlimited potential. All right, just week for time. I'm tongue-tied this morning. Apparently I sold too much soup last night. As we prepare for our time of meditation and prayer, and I ask that you remove everything off your laps except your hymnal. And on the back cover of the hymnal, there is a song called Surely the Presence, which some of you may know. And we're going to sing that as our lead-in to our daily word and our meditation time.
Praise
So now's the time for our daily word. For Sunday, September 22nd, the thought that we hold is healing. I affirm wholeness and I am healed. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell the story of a woman who believed she would be healed if she could touch the hem of Jesus' coat. The woman, according to the story, had been ill for 12 years. Seeing her, Jesus said, "Take heart, daughter. Your faith has made you well." The woman's faith allowed wholeness to shine through the illness. In that wholeness, she was healed. As an emanation of God, wholeness is my birthright. Wholeness maintains my body, mind, and emotions in perfect balance. I release any belief in illness, lack, or limitation, and focus my faith on the wholeness that has always been present. I affirm wholeness and I'm healed. From Matthew 9:22, Jesus turned and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter. Your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well.
Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Take another deep breath in. Just let all the air out, all the worries and cares of today. And be present now in this moment. Another deep breath in. I invite you to close your eyes or cast your gaze to the ground, allowing yourself to become still, breathing into that divinity that is you. And in this moment, call to mind someone that you love. Someone that inspires you to love more, to love deeper, to love more fully. And as that feeling of love fills you, imagine that with each breath, that energy of love moves from your heart out into this room. Love vibrating out into this fellowship hall, into Fort Wayne community, joining with others that at this very hour are also breathing into the presence of God, so that there is one wave of love. As we breathe, becoming quiet and still, allowing ourselves to be present just in this moment, breathing into the presence of God, moving into that space of silence, allowing ourselves to feel our connection to that presence of love that breathes us, allowing our hearts to connect heart to heart in this community that we call unity.
as we become silent and still for just a few moments, resting in the stillness. Surely the presence is in this place. Wherever we are, God is. And in this vibration, this sacred, holy moment, we hold each and every person who has requested prayer. We hold all of those that you have requested prayer for. And in this moment, I invite you to whisper the names aloud of those who are on your heart this morning, so that we may surround them in love and prayer. As we breathe together in this moment, we know that each and every prayer that has been uttered here is in this moment being answered. We may not always understand the why or the how, but we can rest in the assurance that God is always present. That even in this moment, there is divine order in each and every life. that there is an outworking of spirit to create good for each of us. We breathe in to that nature, to that power, and to that presence, knowing that truly all is well. And so it is, all women, all children, amen.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. Oh, hell beneath us, above us on the sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. Isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill us back for. No religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world can live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Our brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world can live as one. And the world can live as one.
Imagine that it's 1800 and there's no electricity, cell phones, or internet. It's kind of scary, right? Good morning, fellow pioneers. You are each and every one. Michael's going to get me some more cord because he knows I'm going to hang myself here in 2 seconds. We've had some technical difficulties this morning. It's a lot like being a pioneer. As we have worked the Johnny Appleseed Festival, not only do we have to dress as though we're back in those days, people are cooking over open fires, people are demonstrating crafts of old, and it's such a great reminder of the pioneer spirit. Think of those brave men and women who crossed thousands of miles. They had no idea what they were going to find. They had no idea what kind of life they were going to have. And yet they stepped out in faith, and using their imagination, they forged their way into a new frontier. Today, my friends, it is our turn to be pioneers, to be spiritual pioneers, to use the power of our imagination to imagine a world where people live as one, to imagine a world where, centered in love, we celebrate our connection to the divine in ourselves and in others. It is our turn to be the pioneers. You know, pioneers, they stepped out even though the collective consciousness said it couldn't be so. They stepped out even in doubt. They stepped out even in fear. They stepped out even though it seemed impossible. They did it anyway. So today, my friends, it is time to go where no spiritual person has ever gone before. To infinity and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say. For those of you who have grandchildren and remember Toy Story. There's another pioneer that comes to mind who isn't dressed like this. He's another Buzz. He's actually one of my favorite Buzzes, Buzz Aldrin. You may recall he was one of the astronauts in the 60s. And he also heard people saying that man could not go to the moon. He also heard that it couldn't be done, that it was impossible. And yet he too, with other astronauts, forged ahead. And on July 21st, 1969, he became the second man to walk on the moon. Now, the reason Buzz is one of my favorite guys is because he was not only a trailblazer, he was a spiritual trailblazer. Because in his pocket of his spacesuit, he carried one of the most repeated affirmative prayers. Something you guys might know. The prayer of protection by Eric Butterworth was in his pocket that day. And that prayer went to the moon, literally. Linda Martello-Whitsitt, who's the vice president of Silent Unity and a Unity minister, writes that spiritual trailblazers are those who deny impossibility and refute seeming facts, forging ahead to prove that spiritual power supersedes only human power. Spiritual power supersedes. So when we were dreaming of our vision, we were dreaming big. What is the world that we want to leave as a legacy? What is the world that we want to know that our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren live into? And so we began to toss around some ideas using our imagination. So for those of you not familiar with Unity teachings, Charles Fillmore believed that within each of us, there were divine characteristics. That there were these, what he called 12 powers. That there are, in our divinity, that we have many of the same attributes that we would assign to a higher power, to a presence. And one of those was the power of imagination. Stop and think about it for a moment. That chair you're sitting in, those shoes that are on your feet, that shirt you're wearing, existed first as an idea in the mind of someone. Linda Martella describes imagination as our powerful capacity to picture what can be. And by holding the idea and developing it until we feel its effects while it is yet unmanifest. And then to live into that idea until it essentially becomes our reality. If we can conceive it, we can receive it. Because everything already exists in that power and that presence, in that divine mind. I love the Abraham Hicks teachings because they talk about this like universal grand buffet. So all of the choices are at the buffet table, and you get to choose which one you're going to take. Now, the downside of that is you can choose to think things are going to turn out like they've always turned out. You can choose to believe that it's impossible. You can choose impossibility off of that buffet. But you can also choose nothing is impossible to me. You can also choose that the universe is always conspiring to my good. You can choose what it is that you wish to create by first holding on to the idea. So we're going to practice that holding on for a moment. The beginning of our vision statement, our new vision statement, is centered in love. So I want you to close your eyes or do whatever will keep you from being distracted. And I want you to breathe in, imagining that as you breathe, you are centered in love. I'm going to sprinkle my magic unity dust on you. And you're going to be centered fully in love. If you walked through your life in love, how would you walk? How would you dress? How would you carry your body if you were centered in love? How would you talk? How would you speak to others if you were centered in love? How would you interact with the world if you were centered in love?